Honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest coming at you with another video.
What is up, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my guy from 95.7 The Game. Let's welcome Sterling Bennett, man. A friend of the show, has been on one occasion, but a second time around this time, man. What's going on?
I'm doing great. So much Niner news coming out the last couple of days, last couple of weeks. Free agency has been a lot of fun, and I am getting ready to talk with CG Ruthless today about all of it.
Oh, yeah. It's been popping. Like, all the news has just been, like, everywhere, even in my sleep.
There have been fever dreams of, are we going to get Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon? Like, my mind now is almost, completely towards the NFL draft, and I cannot wait till April. Like, I know you lose against the Chiefs, and that hurts, and you can get bitter and angry towards it, but football season's already around the corner again, and once the draft hits, I mean, it is full go. Niners are back.
Yeah, especially the draft season. It's one of my favorite seasons besides the Super Bowl, no offense, but I get a good chance to get to know these prospects a little bit and see what they're all about. And yeah, I got quite a few of them coming up. I had the one guy who was the Jim Thorpe Award winner from Air Force. This guy's a safety that I had on my show. And then there's a guy who played in the same college with Frank Gore Jr.
Okay, heck yeah.
Yeah, Jay Stanley's a safety, yeah.
You got to ask him about Frank Gore Jr. because I know Niner fans are in love with the idea of getting all these legacy players,
names,
Rice and McCaffrey and Frank Gore, but honestly, I never want to compare father and son, but they're very similar in how they play, and it's really exciting. Whether he goes to San Francisco or not, like I do think the NFL is getting another Frank Gore type back, albeit production-wise, we'll see. Frank Gore Jr. is really fun to watch. Like, you go watch his tape, watch his film, just watch his games. Like, he is really exciting and really explosive.
Yeah, he can run a big play, and then sometimes he'll just get a touchdown or so. But, yeah, he's one of those kind of backs. But, yeah, like Rice's son, he's coming into his own. Like, I think what stands out is Khalid Williams is making him better. I mean, the other receiver was actually the better one, but I don't think he'll get a lot of buzz because this is Rice's son we're talking about. A 6'3", runs a 4.5, but he's a red zone threat. So can that be the option to replace Jennings next year? Tall, lengthy receiver too.
I do think Jennings, and although he didn't show his signature on the contract, Jennings, I believe, is back for another season. So it's nice to have him back. Obviously, they can tuck an extension with him, but even if they add Brendan Rice, and I do think San Francisco has their eyes towards a receiver because why wouldn't you? You only technically have three of them. If you want to count Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, fine. I would not in that group. You have three of them currently, and Ayuk's contract status is up in the air because of a trade request maybe. Whether it's Brendan Rice or whatnot, it does feel like San Francisco wants at least a second round wide receiver, which they get the right guys. Offense is only going to be better, especially if Ayuk comes back.
Oh yeah, I think once it comes to the post June 1st, I think that's when contracts are going to kick in. I don't think they're really trying to rush it in right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, as soon as the Eric Armstead money comes in and gets put on the books, it is full systems go. Let's pay Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I think that's the process. They got to wait on that play. There's quite a few good receivers in the draft. Like, it's a pretty deep class. I ain't gonna lie. Like last year, if you thought last year was something, I think this year is pretty deep.
It's honestly like when you listen to draft analysts talk about it, when you listen, or you do a mock draft yourself, like there's talks of this being the heaviest first round for receivers of all time. They're talking not 6, not 7. They're talking 8, 9, 10. Some drafts or some mock drafts even have 11 receivers in the first round. I think that's too gaudy for me, but there's a
That's a
lot of
rich
guys
kid class.
worthy, right? Like there's a lot of guys worthy of that. And I do think that if you are San Francisco, who is sitting there towards the end of the second round saying, hey, like, you have a chance to maybe get a first round talent in the second round. Like, if you took this receivers class and you dispersed it across 3 years of the NFL draft, you'd probably have 3 or 4 first round draft picks no matter what. And if you get the right guy in the second round, you are getting a first round talent for not
Yeah.
a first round money. And that's a really good sign for San Francisco.
Yeah, it is. Like, even in the second round, it's pretty deep. I mean, like, there's some guys like Jalen Poe can be somebody you can get there. Jalen McMillan, I know he had a little bit of an injury year at Washington, but he was still very productive. Malachi Corley, that guy can be something special. I mean, you look at Xavier Legit, like, dude, it's pretty deep. Like, then you got so you got all the Texas receivers, even the guy that you can get in the later rounds. Whittington, that dude's a good possession receiver. Like, Worthy got world-class speed. Donna Mitchell, this guy's something else. I mean, look at all the receivers from Washington, dude. It's just ridiculous. Romeo Dunze is a first round for sure. Like, Polk and McMillan, are you serious? This is just like crazy. Like in the same school.
Well, in the same breath, it's also good for the Niners that, let's say, they pick at pick 31. Let's say there are 11 or even 8 first round receivers. That only does them good when it comes to finding a right tackle or a guard. Like, if you are the Niners, the best bet, let's say you're looking for that right tackle, and let's say, okay, you're sitting there and there's Jordan Morgan, and there's a handful of other guys there too as well. You're sitting there going, okay, like, you're begging, you're hoping there's 4 to 5 quarterbacks drafted. You're hoping there is, a handful of edge rushers, and you're almost banking on there being at least 6 receivers drafted in the first round. That gets you a lot closer to 31. And there are plenty of guys you're never going to be able to get anyways because of their draft caliber. There's top 10 guys everywhere in this draft. And so, like, you almost hope teams reach for a Bo Nix, or the Vikings trade up for a J.J. McCarthy, or maybe the Patriots don't take a quarterback. Like, if they don't go quarterback and Drake May's still on the board, it only helps San Francisco's case to getting a right tackle. And I think this hasn't been the case in many years because they haven't had a first round pick. The options are open. Like, if someone like a Nate Wiggins falls, I don't think he will, but or a Tyrion Arnold from Alabama, cornerback, let's say they fall, Kool-Aid McKinstry falls, like, and there's a right tackle on the board still, you now have what do I do? Do I go my cornerback and get my CB2? Do I go and get my right tackle? I hope can be Trent Williams' replacement in a handful of years at left tackle. Like, there's so many options and windows and doors open for San Francisco that, for the first time since 2021, like, it's actually really exciting for the draft, because in previous years, you're like, who's our second round pick going to be? Who's our fifth round pick going to be? And now it's like, no, who's our first round pick going to be? And it's really exciting.
Yeah, first round, like, it's kind of like an interesting part because we can either go D-line too, because I think that's still I still think some of our fans won't like the idea, but it could still be a need.
Well, and that's the thing. So, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I look at the roster as it is today on paper, I do think San Francisco has improved. I know losing big names like Armstead, Chase Young, Clelin Ferrell, like, those things do sting. But from an overall production standpoint, when you acquire Malik Collins for a 7th round pick and you get Leonard Floyd for 2 years, $20 million, who is much cheaper than Chase Young, much cheaper than, Dino Hunter, who was, probably one of their biggest targets they wanted to acquire. Like, I think they improved this offseason. The entire offensive line's back. They can improve in that area come the draft. Like, I know you can look at a team that loses big names, but big names don't always equal big production. I think San Francisco replaced big names with bigger production.
Yeah. It's like, you look at Malik Collins, not a big name, but he does produce pretty well. I mean, Jordan Elliott, it just seems like a under the radar signing nobody knows about, but he could maybe pay dividends. I mean, you look at you know, Leonard Floyd is kind of like he's kind of a big name, kind of because he
Right.
does produce, but not like the one where it's like, oh, we got to get this guy. No,
Right.
he's the kind of guy like, okay, I'm good with that move. But you look at what is his name? The guy we got, Yolter Gross, Matus
Yeah.
Gross, whatever. That dude, I looked him up, and he can play the inside, which they really like on this defense, and he's very coachable. So watching him from Carolina, he's gotten better. So I guess last year he had 4.5 sacks. Maybe under Chris Kasarik, this can be this guy's breakout ceiling right there because this guy's got potential.
Right. And I think Niner fans, when you lose Eric Armstead, I think the idea of, and you hear reports of they're looking at bigger names. Justin Simmons still out there on the market. They were looking at Danielle Hunter. Obviously, the price was probably much higher than they wanted it to be, and rightfully so. He's a great edge rusher. I think this offseason reminds me a lot of 2021, where 2020 was a lost year for them. So many guys got hurt, but in that offseason, they go and they sign Samson Ebukam, they go get Arden Key, then they go and acquire Charles Omenihu. And while you can't just put a person's name in a position and say, well, this person equals that player, like Yetur Gross-Matos does not equal Charles Omenihu production-wise. But role, yes. Like he can play inside, he can play outside. Leonard Floyd is a much more productive Samson Ebukam. And then you have your Arden Key, which they're still trying to find, but I have a good belief they're going to draft somebody, and that doesn't mean that their search for a defensive edge rusher is over. Like there are plenty of guys who will be on this roster in 3 weeks' time that aren't on it now. And like take Deshaun Gibson, for example. He's a middle of training camp signing. Like while San Francisco, they don't want to go that route all the time. Like there's a path that a lot of guys, like this free agency class still has a ton of depth in it. A lot of bigger names that are older or haven't just signed yet. Like Jadeveon Clowney's still a free agent. They're not going to sign him, but there are plenty of depth edge rushers on the market still. And I think for San Francisco, you sit back and go, okay, like how can we play this thing right? We're going into the draft. Like take the Joshua Dobbs signing. No one in their mother thought they were going to sign Josh Dobbs.
Oh, we
But
did.
now they don't need a quarterback anymore in the draft. It checks off one of the boxes come draft day. Now they'll probably sign one as a UDFA, but I would like to think San Francisco wants to walk into the draft with 3, 4, maybe 5 positions of need. And most of those are going to be depth, which is a great place to be after free agency.
Yeah, there is a lot of that because like what we're doing is we're really kind of going wise on our signings, and you look at how the team is doing in general. Like you just said, when we got Josh Dobbs, we didn't see that coming. It was like, really? Did we just sign this guy? Like everybody was hoping we were going to go get Carson Wentz, which I thought would have made a lot of sense because he would have fit our system a little more. But I think he would have cost a little more than Josh Dobbs. So maybe he was asking a little too much. And then finding out Jimmy Garoppolo's with the Rams, that's even interesting.
Jimmy G.
Yeah, you go from the Raiders to the Rams?
Oh. When I saw Jimmy G signed, and I'm someone who really does appreciate Jimmy Garoppolo's time in San Francisco, is ultra successful, although the final goal was not met. And there's a variety of reasons to like him, dislike him, and whatever. But on the field play, they won a lot of games. And I was really, when he signed with the Raiders, I was hoping that Garoppolo would have a lot of success, just for him as a person. And then when I saw him sign with the Rams after the season he just had with the Raiders, I audibly laughed. And I was like, there's no way. And then I sat back and said, okay. So Matthew Stafford's missed some time. Jimmy Garoppolo's out the first 2 weeks because of a suspension from PEDs, which in itself is hilarious. But, okay, so let's say Stafford gets hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo is likely going to get hurt. Let's hope he doesn't, but he's probably going to get hurt.
Part because he holds on to the ball too much.
Right. And then they also now have Sterling Bennett back from whatever he was dealing with last season. So, like, in my mind, I go, like, Jimmy G is almost in the exact same spot, albeit very differently, but in the exact same spot he was with the Niners in 2022, where or maybe it's 23, but where they're going to start Trey Lance, which is Matthew Stafford. You're going to be the backup quarterback in case Stafford gets hurt, which is almost guaranteed. He's older now, the shoulder's an issue, and he gets banged up a lot. Jimmy G's almost guaranteed to get hurt. Like, the Rams, in a weird, twisted way, may be inadvertently setting themselves up for a Brock Purdy, Stetson Bennett kind of resurgence. And God, I hope not. But like, San Francisco liked Stetson Bennett. Many teams like Stetson Bennett. And if he can get his personal life together off the field, like, he could play. Like, he was really good at Georgia. And he does exactly what McVay wants him to do. Like, I know it's, a long view of things, but by the way their quarterback room is set up, there is a path to Stetson Bennett playing this year for the Rams. And I wouldn't be scared of that, but it certainly is a path where I go, if McVay gets a young buck like Bennett to play well, like, the Rams are going to be good again, which is what it is. They're like, they have a great team around them, but like, the quarterback room there's a path to Stetson Bennett being their quarterback in a year or two, which is crazy.
Yes, like for the Rams, when you got McVay, he just knows how to develop these quarterbacks. So it's like, I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, he'll be fine with the Rams because it's kind of like a similar system.
Right.
They run exactly kind of like the same offense. It's just different talent-wise. I mean, I think with the Niners situation is, hey, we don't have to worry about Brock with the backup issue. I mean, everybody was kind of curious. Are we going to go with Brandon Allen as the backup? I mean, that was my question mark.
I thought so.
That was when I made a video about it. I said, are we going to go with Brandon Allen, or are we going to go draft a rookie quarterback, or what's the plan? And I had to go bring in this quarterback, Rocky Lombardi, who might even be a draftable prospect, but I had him on my show, and he seems to have some nice traits. Might fit into Shanahan's offense, the way he kind of officiates the ball a little bit.
Okay. I mean, honestly, the minute they had re-signed Brandon Allen, my mind went to, okay, they'll draft the quarterback in the 6th, 7th round, not get too crazy with it. But then when they signed Josh Dobbs, I completely took quarterbacks off my board. I said, it's not going to happen. Like, you're not giving 2 quarterbacks guaranteed money, albeit very little money on both ends. You're not giving 2 of them guaranteed money just to then draft one. Like, they're not going quarterback in the draft. Like, they'll sign some physical specimen of a guy, as an undrafted free agent, but like, they're not drafting a quarterback. And if they do, my God, like, why?
No, but like you said, it could be undrafted. Like, I think they'll take a flyer on my guy, Rocky Lombardi, man. They might need to take a little flyer on him. He might
I'll check him out.
Yeah, you got to check him out. I actually had him on my show, and then his dad's kind of like, he's kind of been more supportive of my channel too. So a lot of these other guys have been kind of jumping on my show. There's this one prospect who plays in the same college from, where we just signed Brandon Parker, right? North Carolina A&M. Okay. This guy's going to come on my show probably the following week, but his name is Tyreek Stewart. So he's a big tackle. Then Jay Stanley's another guy that I already got scheduled in for this upcoming week, but I'm liking these prospects a little bit. There's some hungry ones I like. I like the guy from Air Force. He seems more determined, more humble. But, a lot of what we do is like, I think, like you said, the quarterback's the least of our concerns. Like, I think cornerback, it might be the most underrated need. Because, just because we just signed Isaac Yiadom does not rule out that we can still get a nickel or something. We still have other needs at those positions, like another safety. We don't know what's going to happen with Hufanga right now. Like, there's been reports that he's not assured the starter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so if we walked in, and I always like doing this because, again, San Francisco has money to spend still, albeit not a lot, but they have some. They have 10 draft picks, to fill their roster still. And I like to think of it as, when people say, and this is kind of off on a tangent, but we can't pay Brandon Ayuk. Well, yes, we can. Like, we have the money to, and we'll have an influx of money come June 2nd once the Armstead's contract's off the book. And that's obviously post-draft as well. But when I look at the Niners right now, in my mind, while it's not concrete, I do think the roster is basically set. I know this morning, apparently they're visiting with Julian Blackmon, who I think would be a great signing for them, especially with Hufanga's injury up in the air. But like walking into the season, they're walking in with what? Mooney Ward is their number one cornerback.
Yes.
It depends on what you want to do with Lenore. Like, would you want to play him at nickel or on the outside? If I was San Francisco, I'd want to keep him at nickel because
That's where he's
one,
been excelling at. Yeah,
like
he's been
I
excelling.
like he's great at both places, but I think to have a feisty nickel cornerback pays dividends in the division that has Tyler Lockett, JSN from Seattle, has Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Like there's a lot of good slot receivers in the NFC West alone. Then you have a team like the Packers and a team like the Lions who have Amon-Ra St. Brown and they have Dontavian Wicks and they have Jaden Reed. Like it pays to have a good nickel cornerback. And I think Lenore makes a lot of sense there. And when he wants to get paid, if he plays nickel 2 years in a row, he's cheaper. All that to say, who is your number 2 cornerback opposite Mooney Ward, knowing Lenore's playing nickel? Like, would you want to walk into a year with Ambry Thomas as your cornerback too? Probably not. But he's a fine fifth cornerback. I do think they are going to give Darrell Luter Jr. a chance at that job. They loved him last year. He had no offseason workouts. He was injured the entire OTAs and minicamp and training camp period. So giving him a full offseason to work with, I do think will pay him dividends. It might, I won't say they're not going to give him the job, but I think it's going to be a three-way fight of Luter, Yadam, and Thomas. And like you said, if they draft a cornerback, where do they go? Right now, they do not have a backup nickel cornerback. I think that's what they're going to pick. People can say Samuel Womack. He didn't take a single snap, OTAs, minicamp, training camp.
They don't seem
nickel.
confident with him either. So
They do not like him inside. He's going to be outside. So they do not have a backup nickel cornerback. I think that's what they're going to draft this year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think a nickel might be the most underrated need because outside of Lenore, who's going to step in? It's like there's a couple good nickels in the draft that I really like this year. Like the kid from Michigan, I think he's an undersized cornerback. I forget his name, but he's really, really good. He got 6 picks. I forget how you say his name, but he's from Michigan. He's a very productive cornerback from Michigan this year. I'm trying to think of his name, but it starts with a Saintsera or something like that. Let me look him up. Michigan.
I do know they also like Andrew Phillips from, I believe, Kentucky. He was
he's good. Andrew Phillips. Mike Saintseratel, whatever his name is. He's really, really good.
Okay.
He's another guy. Like also Max Melton is somebody I'm hearing a lot about, but I don't think he'll play nickel. I think he'll play outside.
He's an outside guy.
I
do wonder though, what do you make of the rumors that San Francisco has been eyeing Tre'Davious White? Because that certainly fills a need if he's healthy. Like, what do you make of that being a potential fit for San Francisco?
Oh, the rumors, man. Like, if we get him, that's a good piece to have because if healthy, he's a good starter. He just may not be the same player like he once was.
Do you view it more so? So, like, when I think of Tre'Davious White, older player, veteran player, probably doesn't have the same physical tools he once had, but he's savvy enough that he can succeed in a zone coverage scheme. That to me, albeit is not the same, screams 2018 Richard Sherman. Now, you always want to put rose-colored flowers on what may not be something like that. Like, I would not expect Tre'Davious White to come in and be Sherman 2.0 like he was for San Francisco, but Sherman, torn Achilles, comes in 2018, revitalizes the secondary. 2019, they take off, right? Manuel Mosley, K'Waun Williams, and Sherman. Tre'Davious White, torn ACL, torn Achilles. Like, there are a lot of comparisons to make there. And, like, I do wonder if San Francisco, that might make them stay clear of him because of the injury, but taking a flyer on him for a cheap price to me could pay dividends in this room that desperately needs that other guy opposite Mooney Ward.
Oh, yeah, it does. Because if you can get him back to what he was, even though he may not be the same caliber player, but if you get him on a very cheap deal, he may pay the huge dividends because if you can get him down the stretch in the season and he's fully healthy and he can play at the highest level, that's a steal. Like you just said, you're not expecting him to be like what Sherman was, because Sherman had an injury too, but this is the similarity. they're coming off injuries, and the Buffalo Bills have moved on. And Tre'Davious White is not even 30 years old. I think he's about 28 or 29, and he's still considered in his prime. So if we can get him on a very cheap deal, then I'm okay with taking a flyer. I know this sounds like a Jason Verrett type of move because we tried to roll the dice with Verrett before, and it just hasn't paid. I mean, only the one season he's played, but the rest of it, he's been missing a lot of time. So I don't know. Maybe the front office is thinking twice because we've been taking that chance, and some of it has paid dividends and some of it hasn't. So it's like, I wouldn't mind if it's on a very reasonable deal. I'm cool with that. But if we're going to have to go for somebody young in the draft, then we might need to go with somebody like you were talking about, Andrew Phillips or that Mike Sensor. I don't know how you say his name, but it came from Michigan. He's a good nickel.
We'll get it right.
Yeah. But, I mean, there is good options. I mean, like even Tre'Davious Ward is even saying like he was even putting it out there like, hey, I got the same agent as him. If you guys want to, let me know.
Well, and so like take that. You brought up Jason Verrett, which I talked about plenty of times on my show. Like San Francisco was trying to get Jason Verrett ready for the playoffs last year. Like they were giving him reps against the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas in hopes come playoffs he could be the opposite cornerback, Mooney Ward. Now, obviously, Verrett gets burned for a touchdown, then gets hurt again, and just things can't come together for him. But San Francisco is not tied to Mooney or to Ambry Thomas starting, like at all. And I think to bring in Isaac Yiadom, to have Darrell Luter Jr. in that room, I do think they are going to look, and I guess they have Chase Lucas as well, who's a primary special teamer.
He's a cornerback out there, yeah.
Right, who I do think does push Womack down the depth chart even further. Like, there is a much needed, not depth player, a much needed starter. Now, maybe it's Isaac Yiadom, who was excellent. I mean, number 3 top press coverage cornerback last year in football. That's like, he was number 3 in football last year against in press coverage. Excellent. So they are getting a weapon, but. Yeah. Like, they still need, like, say Yiadom starts, and it's Ward and Lenore and Yiadom. Okay, your bench is Thomas and Luter Jr. and Chase Lucas and maybe Womack in there. Okay, like, that to me, while yes, you have confidence with Thomas being your 4th, 5th cornerback, fine. And if Luter plays well, great. Like, we have all OTAs and training camp to go, but I do think this room desperately needs another body that can actually provide meaningful snaps because nobody outside of Ambry, who you can argue, not even him, has been able to provide meaningful snaps in big games.
No, he's just kind of been like out of place at times. I mean, there's been positions where you're concerned about, like, man, Thomas is out there. That's not a good sign, like at times. But there's been times he's been playing pretty solid. But I mean, when he kind of filled in for those injuries, at first I was just concerned, like, man, we're toast. But there's been some games where Thomas kind of shows some signs, like, hey, maybe he's not that bad. But having him as a backup, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think Thomas is proven to be a capable guy to step in if it was necessary. I think they trust him enough to where, I mean, they trust him to that point where they even cut that one kid last year. You know, that one kid last year we had who was actually better than him, and we cut him off.
Deshaun Jameson?
Yeah, Deshaun Jameson. Even he was a better corner, and they stuck with Thomas.
Yeah, it's the Ambry Thomas conundrum is, so he comes in his rookie season way in over his head, but has to play in the NFC Championship game. And he was awful his first, 3 or 4 games playing, getting burnt against the Bengals and the Falcons. And it was like, who is this kid? Get him off the field. Oh, my goodness. Now, you know his history with Michigan. Didn't play for a season because he got sick. But then 2022, you're hoping, okay, he's got reps under him. He has experience now. Take the next step. They almost cut him. They were done. He took a massive step back in that room, only for this past season, while he was not expected to start, the plan was Lenore on the outside, Oliver on the inside, they may have had to go to him because of necessity, but he played fine. And I think you're okay with fine 10 out of the 18 weeks you got, 10 out of 20 weeks you got. Fine is okay when you're playing the Cardinals, when you're playing Washington, like when you're playing bottom tier teams, and you can survive against good teams. But when I watched that Packer game in the playoffs, which they should be getting better this year, I was horrified. Thomas gets beat, and obviously that game, in itself was scary because we didn't play well, but Thomas gets beat deep, and then all of a sudden he's playing 10 yards off receivers. And for whatever reason, Green Bay didn't want to exploit that. If I was Green Bay, I would have eaten Ambry Thomas alive. Like, you're just sitting off receivers 8-10 yards, giving them free yardage every single play. Now, I'm okay with playing off coverage at times. He was playing off coverage almost every single snap. It does feel like when he gets beat, which isn't often, but it does happen a lot, he gets scared of, I don't want to get beat again. And in the NFL, you have to be fearless. If I get beat once, I'm right back at it the next time, and I'm making sure I'm not going to get beat. I'm going to make sure I'm not getting beat is I'm going to play off coverage and know that I'll give you free 6-8 yards, and that's fine. When in reality, that's what costs you big games. Like, San Francisco literally benched him in the Super Bowl because they couldn't have him out there. Like, they benched him. Like, Logan Ryan, who was on a Disney cruise with his family and got the call, was starting in the Super Bowl, and he did a great job for a half, and obviously things transpired. But when you're getting benched for a 33, 32-year-old free safety who's now playing nickel when he was on a Disney cruise 2 months ago, that's a bad look. Like, San Francisco is trying to find their opposite cornerback. And again, Ambry's a fine 4 or 5, but I really do feel like, well, while I would not go first round cornerback unless one of the top guys are there, I don't think cornerbacks are our biggest need, but you do have a luxury of being able, if you have one, to draft the top cornerback. You might as well do it, because if you can, like, the NFL is a passing league and it's offense heavy. You have to have the other guy. Like, most teams that don't have the other guy, like, you get beat. Like, take the Cowboys. They had Diggs and they had Gilmore. Once Diggs goes down, they only got one guy. And it's like, like, you have to have the other guy.
You do, because like you just saw what happened when Diggs was out. They had to go with Bland, which he wasn't too bad, but the other corner, Gilmore, just wasn't the same. So it's like,
right.
I think it's a luxury for us to get a cornerback. Like, do I like the idea that maybe we could go cornerback in the first round? Like, let's say those guys are available, like Kool-Aid McAllister. I probably would not hesitate. I'll take him because I've heard a lot of potential, a lot of upside on this guy. Alabama seems to produce some good players, but if it had to come down to, I really do think Lenoir is great at the slot. So I don't think we need to put him anywhere outside unless injuries come into play. But I think with Lenoir, you like the versatility. So we need to get somebody that kind of fits our mold. Like, maybe we don't have to draft one early, but Max Melton is a guy that I like the most. But I was talking to my buddy on the show the other day, and there's this one cornerback that he likes so much from Louisville, Jarvis Brownlee. He says this guy is a physical kind of guy. He'll stop the run, but he is the kind of guy that's going to make a play. And he's not afraid of tackling, or he's not afraid of the coverage. He's got confidence.
Well, that's the thing. So, like, if in San Francisco, because they're going back to this, 4-3 heavy zone coverage style of defense, unlike last season with Steve Wilkes, like, what they were looking for last year, albeit isn't too different. There is a difference. Like, take Jair Brown, for example. Jair Brown is a slower safety, but is excellent against the run. He's a playmaker. We also, or at least I did, I scoffed at that move initially because they had Hufanga. You need that pass coverage safety next to him if you're going to mix and match. Now, obviously, Jair Brown has played great, and he, I think, outperformed expectations as a third-round pick this past year, playing in the Super Bowl. Like, he was not supposed to start at all until Hufanga got hurt. All that to say, if you are San Francisco and you are targeting the secondary, would you go cornerback? Or do you see maybe a need now, because Hufanga's hurt, at safety? Like, let's say you can't sign Justin Simmons. Let's say you can't sign Julian Blackmon. And you walk into the year with Jair Brown as your free safety, Hufanga as a question mark, who's great when he's healthy, but is a question mark, and George Odom. Like, that is not enough. Like, you have to have the other guy. Do you move Jair Brown over? And do you draft the free safety and go, okay, like we have to prioritize this over cornerback, over maybe a receiver, because we just don't know who's going to help us on the back end? Like, I do think while San Francisco has 10 draft picks and they do have the ability to add at multiple places on their roster, I do think there are some needs they have that they're going to have to prioritize over others. Like, right tackle to me is number one. Like, that is a bona fide number one. But let's say Xavier gets on the board in second round, but so is a star safety. So is a top cornerback. What do you do?
It's a tough decision.
Like, I do think that if I was to put myself in San Francisco's shoes, third round, cornerback or receiver, I might go cornerback. Like, you can survive with 3 receivers. They've done it for 3 years now.
Yeah.
What they need to do versus what they should do, I think, are very different, in my opinion.
Situation, but I think in their own mindset, they're going to take what's the best value. Like,
okay.
Like you said, you would rather them prefer to take cornerback, but they might even take the wide receiver because they think it's too good to pass. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Or this might even be something that kind of pisses us off as fans. They might even just take the running back, and we're like, what the heck?
Man, there is only one running back that I would be willing to take in like the 5th or 4th round.
Okay.
And like, San Francisco doesn't need a running back. They have McCaffrey. They have Elijah Mitchell when he's healthy. They have Jordan. Like, they have 3 guys that you can at least point to and say, give me a few handoffs, and you have Christian McCaffrey, the reigning offensive player of the year. If there is one player that I am infatuated with, and this was just crushing the combine, it is Isaac Guerendo. This kid,
fast dude.
like, and again, this is pre-combine. Like, he was going to be, the Isaiah Pacheco of this draft, the someone you're like, who the heck is that guy? And if he can stay healthy, bursts onto the scene. If I'm in that 5th, 4th round area and there's running backs coming off the board, and I know, hey, like, that combine may have piqued some teams' interest, I want to make sure I get that guy in the building, even if it means overdrafting him a little bit. Because I know in a year or so, Elijah Mitchell could be gone, Mason could be gone. You just don't know with Christian McCaffrey's health, albeit he's been healthy for 2 years now. You just don't know. He's had injury history in his career.
And they need a capable backup because, like, let's be honest, we don't know about Mitchell. It's like he never stays healthy. I don't think they trust much of Jordan Mason. So it's kind of like that could be the most underrated need, because if they don't trust Jordan Mason to be the guy at times, and if Elijah Mitchell can't stay healthy on the field, that is a question mark. So I can't be upset about that situation. You know what I mean? So it's
and again, running back is not a big need. Like, that's probably next to quarterback on the bottom of the list of the totem pole. But running back to me is kind of a sleeper position that would be like, hey, like, why not get a guy that probably isn't going to play in year 1, but can provide something for you? Like, why not?
Yeah, you got to find what works for you. I mean, but it's like Shanahan has to have some trust. I think for a guy like Jordan Mason, he has a hard time getting on the field because I think it's something to do with the pass blocking. I think Mitchell is the kind of guy that does pretty well at that area, but just durability has been his issue. Christian McCaffrey, how long can this guy be healthy? We've seen him been injured in Carolina. The Isaac Guerendo, that guy, he has speed. He, like you just said it, like, that's a good comparison to Isaiah Pacheco type back, because he's a fast, speedy back, and he's got the power and all that stuff. There's another running back I do like too, but you might be surprised if it were to come down to the 4th or 5th round. But I'm not saying we should get him. But I think this kid from Kentucky, Ray Davis, I think he would be a great fit. And he's from the Bay.
Okay. I didn't know where he's from the Bay, but he's like gigantic, isn't he? But he's extremely quick. Like,
I think he's about 5'10". I think he's as big as Marshawn Lynch, but he's a very physical back. You got to watch some of his tape, but this kid's from Frisco.
Maybe I'm wrong. And again, you watch the combine, there's like a billion prospects.
I think he ran a 4.52. I think he ran a 4.52.
He's like, but his biceps are as big as my head, and I have a gigantic head. Like, he's huge. Like, and again, who knows what they prioritize here, but like I do think that when talking about running backs, if they're not going to play Jordan Mason, getting a bruiser would pay this team dividends. And I don't think they will. That's not who they are. Like the last bruising receiver I can even think of Kyle Shanahan having was Alfred Morris, and I wouldn't even call him not even a bruiser. Like Jordan Mason is a bruiser. He's a gigantic
Yeah,
person.
this guy's
Like
like
he's
he looks bulky, but he's like about like as big as Marshawn Lynch, but he plays
okay.
in Kentucky. But this he's a good underdog too. He was homeless in San Francisco.
Oh wow, okay.
Never
Good
knew
story.
about that, but yeah, but like you said, the big bruiser backs, right? If you're looking for a bruiser back, Kendall Milton, when healthy, is a physical running back from Georgia.
What do you make of the Brandon Ayuk stuff? Because I feel like a lot of like that's the move Niner fans are waiting to happen. Like that, and it's always an extension with whether Warner or
June
Kittle or
1st.
Bosa or whatever. But like that's the move we're all kind of waiting with bated breath of like what's going to happen. I know Steeler fans are saying he's coming to Pittsburgh. I don't believe that, but and there's the Jaguar
fans
rumors.
think it too. Jaguar fans are thinking the same way, but they're not really putting their hopes up. There's a difference. I mean, I think the crazy part is I would be shocked if we do trade Ayuk because I don't see it happening. I just don't. Like there has to be an offer to where the Niners can't refuse to accept it. It has to come down to an offer to where the Niners say, you know what, okay, all right, you can keep them. But I don't see it happening. I could see it happening during training camp where they get a contract extension, and I think, like you said, the Armstead contract will be off the books for that one. So because the post June 1st, because that's going to clear up the cap space, and that's going to definitely open the room for Ayuk to get a new contract extension. And even if you extend his contract, it does free up more money. So
Right.
I'm not quite a cap space expert, but I know it kind of frees up a little bit of the money and you kind of have a better understanding of how they maneuver the money, right?
Right. So my understanding is as of right now, there are a few moves that are unofficial yet, but as of right now, they have roughly $6 million in cap space. They can extend Juwan Jennings and free up some. He's a $4.8 million
More
cap
close to
hit as
5
of
million.
today.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they can free up some of that if they extend him. Maybe it's a mil or two. Then they can extend Mooney Ward, which I would advise they do so for 3 more years, and they can get rid of his void seasons and get the cap hit down this year as well. They can also, if they do extend Ayuk, he has a $14+ million cap hit now. If you look at the Debo contract when he got his extension, it was similar to what Ayuk's making as of now. They freed up about $7 to $8 million off of that. So let's just say they only make the Ayuk extension. They could essentially walk into the year with $14 million pre-Armstead contract, and they can walk in with 30-ish, depending on what money they spend, walking into OTA's minicamp with $30 million on the book saying, hey, it's all free. We have money to use.
Oh, yeah, they do. And that's what can make it so interesting. I don't think we're really too much in a rush for Ayuk. So Ayuk can just play the game for a little bit and try to false hope those other teams or those fans, because I think he's just playing the game a little bit. Because when he just said something about Mike Tomlin, hey, we twins or something, I think he was just playing the game a little bit.
I mean, I think he's being truthful. Like, you put Mike Tomlin's in dreads; they do look very similar. But
it does. It's like, come on, man. That's in a way they do look the same, but it's just kind of an insult to put it like that. But yeah, you put them together, they do look the same. But
for a team like Pittsburgh, so let's connect some dots here. So when I think of, let's say they're going to trade Ayuk, and we're trying to find a partner, which I don't think they will, but let's say they are.
Okay.
Pittsburgh to me makes no sense whatsoever. What team, what franchise is notorious for drafting 6th, 5th, like 4th round picks and making them stars? You have Antonio Brown, you have Antoine Randall, you have Deontay Johns. Like, all of these guys for the past 25 years have not been like, I think they only have 2 first-round draft picks ever at receiver, ever. Like, Manuel Sanders was a stud for the Steelers. Like, they have Santonio Holmes and Plaxico Burress are the only 2 first-round picks they've ever taken in the draft.
I
They
think,
find these guys everywhere.
yeah, they do. Like, I
It's
think,
like,
like you said,
why trade for Ayuk if that's the case? You don't need to.
yeah, gotta give us a first round. We ain't gonna cough up a second round with y'all. You tripping, man? If you think he's worth a second round, you're out of your mind. Like, I just don't see why other teams think that way. But like, I don't think it's a good fit with him in Pittsburgh either, because I don't think they're quite too much of a passing team. Like, if you
Right.
thought the Niners weren't quite much of a passing team, you ain't seen what Pittsburgh does on offense, man. They usually try to run the ball a little bit more.
When they've just changed offensive coordinators to Arthur Smith. And while I do like Arthur Smith when it comes to what he can do on the ground, running the football, Derrick Henry in Tennessee, albeit didn't utilize Bijan Robinson up to his full potential last year with Atlanta. They don't like name me one receiver in Tennessee that's worked out. AJ Brown, yes, then he got traded. Outside of that, that's it. It's been a much more tight end, running back heavy scheme, and Ayuk doesn't fit that. And they already have George Pickens, who, yes, they had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson now, but they also have Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and those guys are probably going to carry the load for that team.
Yeah,
And again, you're in
he's
the
not gonna be the
deepest
guy.
receiver class ever, maybe. Like, why would you trade? Like, they're at 20. You can find a receiver at 20 if you want it that bad. Like, why trade that pick for Ayuk and more? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
You're giving up something that you could just get in the draft. But I think if they wanted to trade for Ayuk, they know he's something special. There's a difference.
Right.
But like you said, why would you do that when you can get somebody in the first round? Like, Brian Thomas can be out there. Brian Thomas is kind of like technically like a clone of Ayuk. From my understanding, he's a clone kind of, but faster, more physical. He can do I'm not going to go too far off and say he's another Brandon Ayuk, but I've heard a lot of these comps on his name out there. Brian Thomas is somebody that's kind of rising up the draft boards a little bit because he's kind of the sidekick of Malik Neighbors, but this guy is starting to make a name for himself. He's running a 4.3. He's a tall, lengthy receiver. I mean, he can be somebody on the radar.
He reminds me of a much faster Allen Robinson when he came out with Jacksonville. And again, I have not dove into the Brian Thomas tape because we're not picking Brian Thomas unless we then trade someone and get up there. Like, so why look at a player you're not going to draft or even have a position to draft them at all?
Yeah.
But like Brian, like you have Marvin Harrison Jr., you have Malik Neighbors, like Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman's there, like you have Roma Dunze, like there's like 5 guys that can go inside the top 10, top 15. Like
really good.
If you're Pittsburgh and you want Brandon Ayuk, like you could sit there and you can take Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin. Like again, you can find like for San Francisco's sake, it's kind of the same conversation of why would you like you wouldn't pick a first round receiver because you can find one in the second round. Like if you're Pittsburgh, why trade for Ayuk when you can find a younger, cheaper guy that you can pay in 4 years and not have to pay Ayuk all this money and trade a first round pick? So, like, I don't think San Francisco is getting a first round pick offer from any team,
No.
and it's gonna take that to acquire Ayuk.
No, they're asking a little too much for the value because I mean, for a team like if we're gonna trade Ayuk, we want our first round, then we want to be off his cap space book for the 5th year. And I think they're trying to add a little extra. So I think that's backing teams away. They're saying, nah, okay, maybe a first round, but anything else, nah. Oh yeah, that cornerback from Michigan. That's the nickel guy I was talking about. This dude right here. Yeah, he's good. I think he had 6 picks this year. He was a very effective. I think he was a nickel or whatever he played at Michigan, but he was really good. Yeah, the wide receiver class is pretty deep. I think even in the second round, you can find yourself a starting caliber receiver, like somebody that can be an impact from day one, maybe even a 3rd round pick. Like I think some of the 3rd round picks, you might find a receiver that can be developed into a nice receiver, and you don't have to trade for an Ayuk. I think you can get somebody like maybe not as good as Ayuk, but at least can produce solid for your offense. But Ayuk's it's gonna cost a little bit more money for other teams to do that. And I think Niners have that. Everybody keeps thinking we're broke, but I think in the long term, the Niners are still invested in Ayuk. So they're not worried. They're not moving on for him yet.
What did you make of the quote unquote Jaguars offer of or what San Francisco reportedly asked for Ayuk, pick 17 and Zay Jones. When I saw that offer, whether it's real or not, who knows? Like pick 17 didn't stick out to me. It was the Zay Jones player.
That was a laughable trade offer. I don't think we. I think if Jaguars were willing to, I think Jaguars would have took that deal in a heartbeat.
Okay.
No, because come on, like he would be more of an upgrade over Zay Jones, and
right.
we would get a first round pick. A first round pick, there's no sure thing with who we draft, right? There's no sure thing. So I think Jaguars would have took that chance.
The way I looked at it wasn't from, would Jacksonville take the offer? It was, why does San Francisco, if it's true, why do they want Zay Jones? And I think it goes back to what they've been trying to do since 2022 with Danny Gray. They want that burner style receiver in the offense. Now, again, this trade offer could be totally fake and made up, and the reports could be wrong. But if they wanted Zay Jones, what does Zay Jones do? He's a burner deep threat receiver. I think if there's an archetype for a receiver in this draft they want, it's a burner style receiver. Now, I get Danny Gray is still here. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cut. He's not working out. All that to say, I think there are a handful of players that fit the mold of a burner that also fit the mold of what Shanahan likes. Dogs, guys that like to block, have good route trees, that aren't afraid to get physical, that will do the dirty work like a Juwan Jennings, like a Brandon Ayuk, like a Deebo Samuel at times. I think Ricky Pearsall from Florida makes a lot of sense. Xavier Legette makes a ton of sense. And if San Francisco has their eyes towards next offseason when it comes to what to do with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel's 29 next year. And that cap hit gets a little less. You can free up some money if you want to trade him next year. And if they've already have a top 30 pick or top 30 visit with Malachi Corley already lined up,
that's a backup plan that I'm good with. I like his
he's been called the Deebo Samuel of this draft. Now everyone has one of those during the draft the past couple of years. Everyone wants their Deebo, but is that an option for them out there?
That could be the option right there. Like I think he's there in the second round. I would be surprised if he goes in the first round, but
right.
I've heard a lot of buzz about him. Like, there's another guy too that I like. Also, Corley's good. Like you just said, Pearsall, he's really, really good. Like he is kind of like, I don't want to sound like a little controversial, but I'm going to say he's kind of like the male Deebo Samuel. Just the talent wise, bro. You can do jet sweeps with this guy.
Yeah.
What you saw in Florida State, you can throw those short passes, and this guy is hard to tackle. The kid from Florida, dude, I don't know what it is. Like I can see him as a perfect replacement for Deebo, bro. He does exactly the same as Deebo, if not close enough. Somebody told me to check out his film, and I'm like, is this like another Deebo kind of? Like he can play just like Deebo kind of.
I don't think I would put him and Deebo in the same conversation, but I will say this. San Francisco has been trying to fill or has been trying to unlock every door in their offense. They have the physicality. They have the running game. They now have the quarterback. They have the pass blocking receivers. They have the over-the-middle covered completely. They have Kittle. They have Deebo. They have Ayuk. They have Juwan Jennings. Like they have everything in the offense. What do they not have?
A deep speed receiver.
Like they need speed. And now that they have a quarterback who is willing to throw the ball deep, that last year was the most efficient deep ball thrower in football, despite not having the biggest arm. I think San Francisco, whoever it might be, is going to eye speed. Now, speed comes in very different forms, right? That can be speed of a 4-3 receiver. That can be speed in a 4-4 receiver that has physicality that plays faster. Like Jair Brown is a slow player, but he plays fast, right? My mind, my eyes tell me that they might go receiver early, but if there's one guy that it's late in the draft that I'm like, he's on the board still, and I really want him, it's USC's Taj Washington.
Oh, yeah, he's got that speed burner.
He's physical. You can do the end arounds. He's someone that you plug into the offense that can be your fourth, fifth receiver that can, in a way, fill what McLeod was the past couple years for your offense. That it's not going to play much, but he is that kind of, like when he's on the field, you look, you listen. Like Danny Gray, whenever he's on the field, which is not very often, you know what's coming. They're throwing it deep.
Yeah.
With Washington, he has the ability to do that. He's a smaller guy, mind you, but he has the ability to do that. But the thing is, he isn't a one-trick pony. Whereas many deep guys, many deep threats are one-trick ponies. Like Zay Jones, I like him a lot. He can do a lot of things good. What really is he? He's a one-trick pony. And I think for San Francisco, Taj Washington, who is probably going to be there in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, if he's there and you've already got your right tackle, you've already found your nickel back or your safety or whatever else you think they need, if Taj Washington is there, I beg you, I urge you to watch his film, watch his tape, and tell me you wouldn't want to add him to this offense. Like he
adds a different element. He adds a different element to this offense that we've been lacking, like you just said. But he would fill in just a similar role of Vernon McLeod, but he can make some big time plays. I think everybody's just overhyping Rice's son, but if you watch Taj Washington, he led the team in receiving yards. He was the most productive receiver. Caleb Williams, when he needed a big time play, Washington was in the position to make a big time play. You saw it with Rice, but you saw it mostly with Washington. So he's not getting most of the attention, but I think him slipping into the draft board because of Rice's name's out there, I think this will be a beneficial to get this Washington kid.
Well, even then, take it further. Like a player like Taj Washington in a normal receiving class is probably 4th round pick, probably not going to be a top guy by any means, but can add something to your room, can be a depth receiver, and maybe become a number 3, whatever guy you might want to add to his name. But in a deep class like this, it benefits San Francisco to maybe get a player like that come to the late rounds. And again, like when I go through the draft, I never go, we can get this guy and that guy. I go, okay, like who are these late round draft steals? Who are these diamonds in the rough that make a lot of sense, who maybe have had injuries that their draft stock's getting pushed down, or guys who are from small schools. Isaac Grando fits that role, and so does Taj Washington. Now, I get it's Louisville and it's USC, mind you, but like Taj Washington, for as good as he was last year for USC, no one's talking about him.
No,
because how good this draft class is for receivers, and because everyone is like Brendan Rice. I hate to break it to you, I don't want Brendan Rice. I don't. Like I would be more happy if we didn't draft Brendan Rice than actually drafting Brendan Rice. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just don't buy into him being a number 2 receiver. I don't buy him. I like what we have now. He's not going to replace anybody. And maybe you don't ask him to. That's fine. But you are going to have to make a decision on Deebo Samuel in 2 years' time. You have to make a decision on Ayuk right now.
Yep,
he's not replacing anybody. Like if you're going to replace somebody, you're not drafting Brendan Rice to do so.
Nah, if you're going to replace Deebo Samuel, at least you're going to have to get Malachi Corley at least. Yeah. For Brandon Ayuk, if you can get something in return in the first round, I would think Brian Thomas would be your option to replace Ayuk. But
right,
like I don't think neither guy's going to replace what those guys are doing because those rookies don't produce right away. Like you're hoping maybe you can do exactly what the Vikings did when they got rid of Diggs. They got the similar production with Jefferson. You're hoping that that's what you're hoping for.
Which that in itself was luck because the Eagles picked Jalen Reagor right in front of them.
Yeah. But
like, there's a lot of luck that goes into this.
Yeah. But you're not going to find – they don't grow on trees. You just have to have your luck with them, I guess.
Well, and take that. So, like, I believe it was 2020, the year that Ayuk got drafted. Who were the first 2 receivers off the board? It was Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. Like, I like both those guys for a variety of reasons, especially in Ruggs, are now gone. Jeudy signed and got traded to the Browns. CeeDee Lamb has been great for Dallas. Ayuk was, I believe, the last receiver picked in that entire first round, and he's arguably the second, third best one of the group. Like, there was busts of receivers in that first round. Like, who's to say that despite how good this draft class for receivers is supposed to be, who's to say they're as good as they actually are projected to be? Like, what if it is Brian Thomas and things don't come together? I watched Justin Blackmon be the best receiver in football or in college for 2 years at Oklahoma State, got into the NFL, goes to the Jaguars, and couldn't see the field. He was so bad. Like, horrible. Like, I would urge everyone to never trust Mel Kiper Jr.
On his draft boards, yes.
Like, he's horrible. He's horrible. And all due respect to him, I'm sure he's a great guy. Like, he was infatuated with Justin Blackmon of what he could be. You can be anything you want to be. Don't mean you're going to actually be.
I mean, the talent was there. It's just his.
It was
the maturity. Just like he just made terrible decisions. It wasn't like he was a terrible receiver when he was drafted. He was very productive. Just served suspension, got a lifetime ban. So it's kind of hard for a guy to get his act together. But I think the talent was undeniable. I mean, Jaguars just took the risk and it just didn't pay off. It was just how we drafted Aldon Smith.
Or take it even sooner than that, Reuben Foster.
Oh yeah,
great talent. Great talent.
Great risk taking, but it didn't pay off.
Like, he just couldn't keep his hands to himself. And it's like you just don't know. Like, you can draft a guy and you can trust the coaching staff at the college they went to, and then get to the NFL, they get to the wrong place, and all of a sudden it's over with. Now, all that to say, you hope everyone comes out clean and everything's fine. Like, those cases are rare, although still happen. Like, who's to say the first 11 receivers in this draft all stink? Now, that's not going to happen, but there's going to be some picked in front of you and picked behind you. There's going to be some draft analysts that say, you should have picked that guy and this guy and that guy.
And that guy doesn't turn out good.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, like, in reality, it's all a crapshoot. And we're all sitting back saying, I want to pick this guy because X, Y, and Z. And San Francisco is like, yeah, we'll take Brock Purdy. We'll take Hufanga. We'll take Nick Zakel from Fordham. Like, no one knew who that guy was. They've been scouting him for 4 years. They've scouted him for 4 years.
Yeah, like, Fordham. Like who follows that college program? It's like
nobody. Nobody.
Yeah, like I remember there was this hype on Denzel Mims, and what is it? Where is he at? He ain't that good from what everybody was saying.
It just depends. It just depends.
I remember this one time we took a flyer on Jalen Hurd, man. We thought he was going to be something good, but couldn't stay healthy. He had back issues, and it just never quite turned out to be what he was. So I think
he fractured his back in preseason against the Cowboys after a 2-touchdown performance.
Which was good performance, but then he just couldn't stay healthy.
Which led us to Juwan Jennings, so
that's
things
the
work out, I guess.
Replacement. That's the same guy who actually replaced him at Tennessee, and he had to transfer or switch positions or something like that.
It's all life is a full circle. Everything comes full circle.
Like how do you get replaced by the same guy in college? Like Jennings turned out to be a good choice because we got him in the 7th round. So there was a lot of red flags on this guy. Like they said, oh, he wasn't the fastest receiver. Oh, he has attitude issues at Tennessee. He was kicked out of the school program because of this. But most of it came down as the positive because he was a great blocker. He was a great little physicality kind of guy. He was a yak guy. When I look at his game, I'm like thinking, okay, he is kind of like a poor man's Anquan Bolden because Bolden was just a little physical kind of guy. Not fast either, but just a gritty receiver, Jennings may not have the production what you look for in an Anquan Bolden, but that's why I say he's a poor man's Bolden because Bolden did all the dirty work. Bolden doesn't get enough recognition as what he was as a blocker and as a guy that just smiled when he took some opposing defenders down.
I do think that many fans are going to be shocked as to which receivers fall. Because so the top 5 right now is probably Neighbors, Harrison Jr., whatever combination you want to make of those being 1 and 2. Then you're going to add in, your Brian Thomases. You're going to add in your Roma Dunzes. And then that number 5 spot's probably Brian Thomas. Then you have your Troy Franklins. Then you have guys like Keon Coleman, and you have your Xavier Worthies, and you insert the next 5 players. Like, for as hyped up as this receiver class might be, I would not be surprised if we see a run on tackles and guards and cornerbacks, and we're like, there's only been 3 receivers taken, only been 4 or 5 receivers taken. Like, man, like what's going to happen? So the draft in itself is always like Mahomes went what 12th, 13th. Like Deshaun Watson didn't get picked, and granted, there's in retrospect, good for not picking him, but at the time it was like you're picking Trubisky, you're picking Solomon Thomas, so like the draft day in itself is going to give us some surprises, and even after that, once you get guys into OTAs, minicamp, you see them every single day. That's when you truly find out who guys are. And I think for the Niners, for fans, don't focus on who you didn't get. Like, I wanted CeeDee Lamb. He's a great player. I am overjoyed that we drafted Brandon Ayuk, who I had no idea who he was. Like, I was like, CeeDee Lamb's still there. CeeDee Lamb is still there.
I was
like,
with that same mindset too, and I was upset when we got Kinlaw, and I'm like, come on, man.
When they picked Kinlaw over Lamb, I punched my couch. I was so mad.
I was like mad, bro. I even cursed out and say, why did we get this guy with a knee issue? Because I looked up.
Now he's getting paid $4 million from the Jets. So
yeah. The worst part was I even said, please don't pick Kinlaw. Please don't pick him. Because I looked him up and I said, okay, the only downside of him is that knee issue. And I'm like, the Niners better do their due diligence because that dude has an arthritis knee. And I said, don't touch that guy.
and take the Kinlaw pick, for example. I am hoping San Francisco learned their lesson that you can trade your stars. The Buckner trade, in retrospect, who they got for him to replace him wasn't the right pick, but trading Buckner made sense financially to keep the core together. Okay, whatever. It's really hard to trade, say, Ayuk for pick 17 and then picking a receiver with 17. Like, you are instantly saying, be the next Brandon Ayuk to your fan base, which isn't fair to the player. But also, it's really hard unless you're totally sold on that player replacing Ayuk in Kinlaw's place, Buckner. Like, I hope they've learned their lesson as to you cannot just find a one-for-one replacement. Like, if you're going to trade Ayuk, it needs to be 2-3 guys. And I'm talking whether it's a first-round pick and a third-round pick or a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick. Like, let's say Ayuk got traded for pick 20 or 17. And let's say it was a Brian Thomas. Let's say it was a Troy Franklin or a Keon Coleman. You better pair that with a guy later in the draft too, because you're not replacing Ayuk with the 1v1. It's just not going to happen. It rarely ever happens that way.
Yeah, you got to get somebody who can fill that production well. Like, I mean, yeah, you can get a Brian Thomas if you wanted to, but like, is he going to still slide to the 17th pick? Like,
exactly.
I think if we were to trade for Ayuk, we're probably going to double on the offensive lineman. So we could protect our asset with Brock Purdy. And then maybe in the second round, you get yourself a Ayuk replacement. But
it's a crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot, but if you can get Xavier Legette at the second round pick, who's actually faster and actually kind of is built like AJ Brown, but got that speed, man, you're not going to pass on that guy?
I would not. And Legette is somebody. Polk? So, see, like, there's only 2 players in the second round I would trade up for. And that is Xavier Legette from South Carolina or Chris Jenkins from Michigan. I love Chris Jenkins. His father, former Panther, great, underrated. Like, I do think this team does need more defensive tackles. I get they have Collins and they have Hargrave and they have Elliott and they have Givens. And again, I guess Clea Davis is also there, but I think this team would be apt to draft a defensive tackle, knowing Malik Collins' deal, albeit is 2 years, is kind of only 1 year because they can cut him next year and save $9 million. I think that's a lot of money.
So his contract's good for another year, huh?
So they have this year with guaranteed money on the books, but next year he has no guaranteed money. So let's say he doesn't work out. Let's say they want to get younger again, or save money and prioritize other positions, or draft a replacement for him in next year's draft. They can cut him for $9 million off the books and save yourself some money and pay insert other player. Like trading Armstead or cutting Armstead and trading for Collins may have hurt, but what it did was it gave San Francisco a top 6 pass rushing defensive tackle, and it also gave them cap flexibility, knowing there's no guarantees on his contract next year.
So they're saving a little bit of money out of it. So I think even if they don't bring him back, that's saving $9 million for next year. But I think they want to. I think he's going to perform better, and I think he'll make a strong case to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Collins will probably be here for 2 years. We'll obviously see, but let's say something happens and he gets hurt, whatever. Like right now, what Collins brings is a starting caliber defensive tackle that is an excellent pass rusher, is not going to be on the field likely during run downs, which is why you bring in a Jordan Elliott, which is why you bring back a Kevin Givens, which is why you likely insulate your defensive tackle room with the draft pick, which again, back to what I was saying earlier about there's only 2 guys I'm trading up for in that second round, Leggett and Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins is underrated as heck. And people can point to, Tavondre Sweat from Texas, and they can point to, Byron Murphy. Like, you give me Chris Jenkins, like, you have yourself a monster in the trenches.
Yeah, he's kind of like I think his ceiling's only going to get better because I think he's got the upside to be a really good player at the next level because I think his production is kind of similar to what Armstead did in college. There's still some talent there. There's a couple D tackles I do like in this draft. Like, I like Sweat, but I don't think he'll fit us because I don't think we value the big man right there. It's just, it would just be a dream just to get a 360-pound man to eat up the running game. Like, I would be shocked if we do go that route and take Sweat. I would be super shocked because why would we want to pass on somebody that big of a man? Like, he's just built like Mark Henry or something, built like a brick wall.
He's built like Mark Henry.
Like, he's a big guy. He's a big dude. He's a big guy.
That's funny.
Like, he's eating at the buff.
If what you're saying is he's going to be putting people in the Hall of Pain, then
Hall of Fame, yeah.
Yes, that's awesome.
He did it if you saw the practice at the Senior Bowl or something, he put the Arkansas center on the ground, dude. Like I've never seen before. And he moves quick for a guy of his size.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
I mean, McKinley Jackson's another guy like too from Texas A&M. This guy can eat the run. Like, I think he's another guy I like also. But then there's what's that dude from Clemson or Ruku, or I don't know how you say his name, but he's another good one. But Michael Hall is kind of like more of a fit to us because I think Michael Hall has that upside. If you were to get him in the second round, he would be the perfect fit to what we run in our defense because Michael Hall is like a 290 guy. He kind of has that little good athleticism to where he can stop the run and actually get a little pressure to the quarterback. I've heard a little bit about that guy from Ohio State, but Chris Jenkins, I've heard that the ceiling is off the roof, man. This guy's he still hasn't scratched the surface yet.
And he'll probably go in the the 50s and 60s and maybe a little higher depending on how the first round goes. But San Francisco has 10 draft picks. Like, there is room to maneuver up, and I think that while they got kind of bonked by some financial issues on the back end, and they got moved back to the end of the fourth round, and all that to say that why wouldn't you move up? Like, you would get, let's say they go to the first round, they get a right tackle, and let's say they're picking at, I don't know what I think they're in the 60s or whatever it is. Like, if there's a guy at 55, at 50 that you love, go up and get him. Like, they picked a kicker in the third round last year.
Which was uncalled for.
Like, they picked Latu, who didn't play, and they probably won't even be the second string tight end this year. Like,
I think Braden's going to be the guy.
I don't think Braden is either. Like, I think they're going to draft somebody or they're going to sign somebody. Like, I don't like for Braden's case, a blocking tight end, that makes sense. They need someone to do both. Like, I'm so tired of seeing Kittle in the backfield in big games be a non-factor in Super Bowls because he has to be the inline tight end blocking opposite edge rushers. I'm so tired of it.
They need somebody to step in that role and let him be more of a receiver at this point.
Right. Which, if you are San Francisco, Charlie Warner was a great blocker for you for a couple years, but even then, I think if you can run 2 tight end sets and have your other tight end be a weapon too, that the defense has to account for, which the last couple years they have not had to because Warner wasn't a receiver, Dwelly wasn't a blocker, and then there was Juszczyk. Juszczyk is great. He's a fullback, and he can play tight end too. But if you are San Francisco and you want to make your offense more dangerous in the passing game, go sign a Robert Tonyan. Like, go give me a Logan Thomas, who I get has been hurt many times in his career, but as a backup tight end, I mean, the odds of him getting hurt again, after 2019, they lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. What'd they do? They went and signed Jordan Reed. Now, 2020 was an awful year for everybody involved. Guys got hurt. We never got to see Reed and Kittle on the field together.
Nope. Not as much.
That is a plan they want to execute and have 2 receiving tight ends. You don't have any of those now. You have Kittle and you got nothing behind him.
We don't know what we're getting with Braden yet because I don't think he got much of an opportunity to showcase it.
No, he was he was the 4th or 5th tight end last year on the depth chart before cuts. Latu got hurt. Fumagalli didn't make the team. And then it was Dwelly and it was Warner. Then Dwelly got hurt.
We won't know until he gets a chance. So, I mean, we barely saw what those guys were. Latu, he's kind of a question mark because he has a hard time catching the ball. And I think I think
Latu is a bust.
Yeah.
He was a transition to tight end 2 years ago at Alabama. They picked him in the 3rd round. Nobody had him in the 4th round on their draft boards. Nobody.
Which was insane. Why do we even have him on our draft board? It was just like, dude, we could have got a tackle or something, but we didn't even go that route.
Which, not even a tackle. You can have anybody. Just someone that actually makes the roster and is productive, which Latu was not. And maybe he gets healthy. Maybe he looks better this year. I hope that's the case. The better he gets, prove me wrong. I will happily eat that crow. I'm so good with that. But all that to say, they have no proven bodies outside of Kittle, and just go bring in a vet for a year. It's not going to hurt anybody. If Willis plays great in camp and training camp, good. That's great for everybody. If Latu beats out the vet, fine. Let's go. But you don't have anybody else now. And if they're going to draft a guy at tight end, you're just adding more unproven to what's already unproven. That doesn't bother me, but it does make me think, okay, what's the plan? You don't have a backup tight end right now. You just don't.
Yeah, we don't if we draft another rookie, and we've drafted a rookie tight end, that's a question mark too. But what if that's actually a lot better than what we got with Dwelly?
Yeah.
I don't know. I seen Wayne Breezy just put it out that we might just bring back Dwelly. I hope not. He's kind of been the guy that we've been bringing back a lot of times. I mean, we got to go a different direction. He's not quite a blocker. He's a solid receiving tight end, but just not a blocker. I don't think he's the guy you could depend on. So why bring back somebody who's more of a catching tight end?
Yeah, you got to have a guy that can do both, and they have nobody right now outside of Kittle.
I mean, potential-wise, Braden does, but we don't know. We haven't seen enough. So, yeah, Latu, we don't know because he kind of had a weird offseason, and he could be potentially cut. So we'll see. But I think we pretty much covered whatever we need to do, man. The draft will give us some ideas, but maybe in the near future when you got some free time, man, we'll definitely catch up. Maybe we'll do something after the draft or whatever you got available.
Yes, sir. If we can find some time, let's do it again.
Yeah, for sure, bro. A lot of fun. And for everybody else, before we go, tell everybody where they can find your social media platform.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media at 49ers_access is my X or Twitter. You can follow me on social media, 49ers.access, over 23,000 followers on there. Or you can watch me on YouTube or on the podcasting platforms. Just type in 49ers access. Find me on there. We're trying to grow, get higher, get better, and do all the things. CG, thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, yeah, anytime. And thank you guys for tuning in. And it was a lot of fun. And we'll see y'all next time.